Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation. John, tell us about your story.
It's been a long journey for sure. I've done many things in my career. I've started a couple of tech companies. I was a senior executive with Atari in the video game business many, many years ago. A partner with McKinsey Company and a partner with Deloitte. On the side, I've written 8 books, so I'm a passionate writer. There's a common thread that is driving my passion, my excitement. I'm focused on helping people to anticipate and see new opportunities emerging in the future and helping them to address the opportunities, not just see them, but actually take action and benefit from addressing the opportunities. If there was one key shift in my life, it was back in 1980. I was working at the time with a major consulting firm, Boston Consulting Group, BCG, and I came up with this idea to start a computer company. The interesting thing is I had never used a computer before. Never mind, I'd never studied computers or technology. I had no technology background. And all my friends thought I was absolutely insane and counseled me to get therapy quickly because I was coming up with this crazy idea to move across the country and start a computer company. I wanted to do it in Silicon Valley. I resisted all their advice and I ended up making the shift, and I've not looked back. I mean, part of my interest was coming to Silicon Valley to be at the center of a lot of the technology that's driving global change and emerging opportunities. So that's what brought me here and has kept me here for 43 years now.
John, you live at a place which I always go for inspiration, Tiburon. So John, it's amazing that you decided to write and be in this field of technology without any formal background. Now, technology has gone to every facet of life. Whether people like it or not, there's technology, right? Electronics, software, and all that. What's going on with all these new technologies like cloud and edge? It's so hard, even for a technologist like me, to keep up. How do you keep up, and how do you suggest that your clients keep up with technology?
It's challenging for sure. When I was a partner at Deloitte, I founded and ran a research group called the Center for the Edge. And one of the reasons we chose the name Edge was because our belief was the changes and opportunities that we were going to see first emerge on an edge. And there are many different forms of edges. For us, edges were geographic edges, emerging economies, developing economies. It could be new generations coming into the workforce or into the marketplace. It could be new generations of technology, new types of technology. And so constantly we were surveying the edges to look and see what is occurring that was not anticipated and what kind of implications could it have. That's what drove us in terms of really being able to identify those emerging opportunities and helping people to see them. It's challenging for sure, but I counsel senior executives and leaders to not just focus on the large existing technology companies, but keep focused on the new generations of companies that are being funded by venture capitalists and the new technology that they're bringing to market, and try to understand what are the implications of those technologies and how are they connected. Because I think one of the interesting things that often eludes people is they get very focused on one silo. It's all about cloud computing. It's all about artificial intelligence. It's all about the metaverse. No, it's about all of these things coming together and how they're going to shift and change our lives and how we do business. But that's, again, it's complicated. It's not easy, but I think it's essential to keep that integrated perspective.
What are the edges that you're seeing today technologically that are affecting people?
With artificial intelligence, everybody's talking about it. Very few people are talking about the data required to run artificial intelligence. The assumption is the data is there. It's all about artificial intelligence. And I believe that actually there are a whole series of issues, both technology and other issues, that are going to affect our ability to access data. And so if we don't focus on who's going to get access to what kind of data over what period of time, we're not going to really understand the potential and impact of artificial intelligence. AI without data is actually extremely stupid, and nobody seems to even address that, much less pursue it. In that context, one of the areas of technology that's certainly interesting and developing rapidly is the Internet of Things, technology that can capture data in much richer and deeper ways around our entire environment and provide us with a much richer view of the context that we're operating in, and real-time feedback on what actions we've taken and what impact we've achieved. Very different technology that I have a particular interest in is biosynthesis. I believe it's going to transform our world. And the whole notion of people who can live much longer, healthier lives on a global basis, very few people are even thinking about that, much less addressing it in terms of the opportunities that it creates and some of the challenges that we'll face as that happens. And then again, it's all about connection and how things are connected. So it's not just focusing on the technologies, it's focusing on the environment within which the technologies are going to be deployed and how it will change that environment. And on the one side, what opportunities it will create, and on the other side, what challenges it will create. And being very thoughtful about second, third order implications of all these technologies. Versus just getting consumed by the technology itself.
When I went to school, there was electrical engineering separate from mechanical engineering, separate from computer science, and my professors would be very annoyed if I said I wanted to take a class slightly different from my, whatever tunnel I was assigned to. And you see the same thing in medicine, There's a pediatrician separate from an obstetrician, gynecologist, and all that. With these narrowly defined silos, will we be able to be creative in bringing different silos together?
I just returned. I'm on the board of trustees of a group called the Santa Fe Institute. And for those who are not familiar with the Santa Fe Institute, their whole mission in life is to break down the academic silos. Their focus is on what they describe as complex adaptive systems. They started almost 40 years ago. What they realized was that academics in very different disciplinary silos, everything from physics to chemistry to sociology to economics, were addressing complex adaptive systems. But they had no idea that anybody else outside their silo was addressing them and had interesting insights to offer. And so their whole mission was, how do we convene these people and make them aware that they're actually addressing very similar kinds of issues and opportunities. I've become a strong believer that big catalysts for change in the future are going to be those who ask the most powerful questions, rather than those who claim to have all the answers or are experts and can show all their credentials of how they achieved their expertise. No, it's all about, in a rapidly changing world, we have more and more questions. And those questions are not silo specific. If you ask a really powerful question like, what are complex adaptive systems? It draws people from all different silos together because it's such an interesting question. And all of a sudden they realize, wow, I've been focused on an element of that, but there are others who might be able to help me come up with more insight and pursue it together. So it's this notion of asking powerful questions and pulling people in across silos and boundaries so they can come up with more and more insights and learn faster. One of the key themes in my work is this notion of accelerating learning. But when I talk about learning to most corporate leaders or institutional leaders, they say, oh, you're talking about training programs. We have training programs. We do learning. And my response to that is, no, I'm not talking about training programs. That's learning in the form of sharing existing knowledge. People come in and listen to somebody lecture on something that's already known. Now they know it. Okay, they're sharing existing knowledge. In a rapidly changing world, the most powerful and necessary form of learning is learning in the form of creating entirely new knowledge that never existed before. And that does not occur in a training room or a workshop. That occurs through action and by coming together. Because again, no matter how smart or intelligent you are as an individual, you will come up with much better insights if you come together with others, particularly those who have different perspectives and backgrounds, to come up with creative ideas on what the answers might be. It's interesting, we as children all had a passion about learning. We're going out into the playground or into a new area and just exploring and learning about new things. Unfortunately, most of us lost that, or it's been kept deep inside us because we were taught just to go to school and listen to the teacher and memorize what the teacher has to say, and you'll be successful. Unfortunately, in this world, that's increasingly a formula for failure, not for success. And we need to bring those children out from within us to ask the really curious questions and really be creative about what the answers might be.
You're bringing up some very interesting topics that are close to my heart, which is learning how to learn and asking the big questions and listening. What do you think are the most important things we need to develop as humans in order to learn and formulate new things?
I make a distinction between skills and capabilities. And for me, the distinction is skills are very useful in a particular context. How to operate this machine, how to do this kind of calculation. Those are very helpful if you're in that context, but they're not useful outside that context. Capabilities, in contrast, are things that are useful in all contexts. There are many capabilities that we could talk about, but I think things like curiosity, creativity, imagination, collaboration, those are all capabilities that are useful in any situation. And particularly if your goal is to learn faster in the form of creating new knowledge, venturing out into new areas and experimenting and seeing what you can accomplish and learning from that. I'm going to generalize, but certainly in large organizations around the world, these capabilities are somewhat suspect. You don't want somebody who's curious. They're going to ask too many questions. Just read the manual and follow the manual, do the tasks as assigned, and that's the key to success. But curiosity is a distraction. There's a big challenge in terms of how we make that shift. I think it's an essential one for all of us as human beings. I've become focused on a very specific form of passion that I call the passion of the explorer. It's a result of research that I've done where I was looking for environments where there's sustained extreme performance improvement. And very diverse environments, not just in the business world, but including things like extreme sports, big wave surfing. A common element, despite all the diversity of those environments, was the participants had a very specific form of passion that I call the passion of the explorer. And it has to do with having a long-term commitment to making increasing impact in a specific area or domain. It's about excitement when you're confronted with unexpected challenges. People have this passion, get excited. It's an opportunity to have even more impact. And people with this passion, their first instinct when confronted with new challenges is, who else can I connect with who can help me get to a better answer faster? Because that's their commitment. The passion of the explorer, I believe, draws out all these capabilities. People with this passion have curiosity, they have imagination, they have creativity. Again, I believe we all have it within us as humans. I'm often dealt with the objection of, come on, some of us are capable of passion, but most of us just want to be told what to do and have the security of an income. No, my response to that is, let's go to a playground and look at children 5 or 6 years old. We all had that passion, that excitement, that curiosity, imagination, creativity. It's within us as human beings. But unfortunately, our schools and our institutions, generalizing again, are largely focused on crushing that passion and getting us to just listen to the teacher and pay attention and memorize and show that you've memorized. And so I think a key challenge and opportunity for all of us is to look for that passion that's within us, find it, draw it out, cultivate it, and find a way to make a living from it.
This conversation is music to my ears. The passion of the explorer, and I remember reading a book on A Hero with 1,000 Faces long time ago. All this sounds very interesting, and in fact, I live close to Clint Eastwood's house. Isn't this the stuff of the movies? There's always that fear saying, oh, we need security, and we need to then follow the right path, the biggest, safest job, and so on. How do we solve this paradox? On one hand, there's the need for security, especially when you have families to support. But on the other hand, it stifles curiosity and passion, and we're stuck with a rock in a hard place.
That's actually been the focus of my new book, my latest book called The Journey Beyond Fear. And catalyst for it was I started writing it almost 7 years ago, and I was traveling around the world as part of my work. And everywhere I went, the dominant emotion that I was encountering was fear. At the highest levels of organizations, lowest levels out in the communities, fear was really driving their choices and actions. And while I think it's understandable, I think, as you were saying, and I've developed this in some detail in my research, the changes that we're driving in the global economy and society are creating mounting performance pressure on all of us. Competition's intensifying, pace of change accelerating, extreme disruptive events coming in. There's a lot of pressure. So the fear is understandable. But to your point, I think, first of all, it's a process of acknowledging the fear, because I think many of us don't even want to say we're afraid, because that's a sign of weakness. That makes us weaklings. But then recognizing how limiting that emotion is, that it's limiting us in terms of our ability to see new opportunities and address them, and then make that journey beyond fear, finding and drawing out that passion of the explorer. Once you find that passion, you will have a very hard time just staying in a secure job, because that's the secure place. You'll be driven to find a place that will provide you with the income you need by pursuing your passion versus simply signing on to do what you've been told to do. And I don't want to say it's a simple process. I think it's a challenging one. It's also a very necessary one. And increasingly in a world that's driven by accelerating technology change, if we don't make that shift beyond fear, we're going to be increasingly marginalized and diminished, because we're not willing to learn, we're not willing to find the passion to pursue. In a world of mounting pressure, we're just going to be overwhelmed.
I can't wait to get hold of that. One curious thing, John, at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, the idea was to get people to do specific tasks, right? There's a pipeline and each one does their own thing. And if everybody does their own thing, lo and behold, you can scale it up, make millions of cars. Are you saying we're entering a different era? The paradigm that worked in the Industrial Revolution doesn't really work anymore?
Just want to go back to the question of fear. Specifically, I'm talking about fear of the future. When you look into the future, do you see it primarily as a threat or as an opportunity? And more people around the world are seeing the future as very threatening, very scary. I don't want to go there. I just want to hold on to what I have and make it through. Again, going back to my past, one of the key reasons I was drawn to Silicon Valley was because I saw here a sense of optimism about the future. The entrepreneurs here were all focused on what are the opportunities that we can be addressing? What value can we create? And yes, there are challenges, there are obstacles, but it's all about the opportunity. And to me, that was very inspiring and exciting versus what was happening in the rest of the world, which was more and more focus on the challenges and the threats. These are people who are drawn from all over the world. I don't think many people realize that in Silicon Valley, the majority of successful entrepreneurs were not born in Silicon Valley or in the US. They came from other parts of the world because they were so inspired and excited by this sense of opportunity. That's something we all need to embrace and to your point about the shift from the traditional industrial model, I call it scalable efficiency. The model is basically how to do things faster and cheaper at scale. And you do it by tightly specifying all the tasks, making sure that they're addressed in a very routine and reliable way. I believe that model is becoming increasingly inefficient in a rapidly changing world. People are increasingly confronted with unexpected situations where this process that's been specified can't deal with it. I believe we have to fundamentally shift our organizational models to what I call scalable learning. And again, it's not learning in the form of training programs, and it's not learning just in research labs or innovation centers. It's how do we get everybody in a large organization to learn faster in terms of creating new knowledge by addressing unseen opportunities and finding ways to address them. Those are going to be the most successful organizations, but it's a fundamental big change. I'm an optimist by nature, and I believe we all can make it and do it. But if we're driven by fear, we won't do it because we just want to hold on to the way we've been successful in the past and continue just squeeze harder.
I agree with you that there's a need for learning and it will continue. But every once in a while, you get gurus. Right now, it's Elon Musk who's saying that machines can learn everything and machines will do almost everything for you. You just sit back and relax. With AI and machine learning and generative AI, all our problems will be solved and humans will be redundant.
I'm a skeptic on that. One of my favorite quotes in the computer industry is from actually Pablo Picasso, the painter. And he once made the observation many decades ago. He said, computers are absolutely useless. All they can do is provide us with the answers. He said the most important thing is the questions. What are the questions? And artificial intelligence, to some degree, can provide some questions, but they tend to be fairly routine questions in a particular process. Okay, you're at this point, this is the question you should ask. Then there's this question, and but questions about things that we've never encountered before. That's something that I think, again, we as humans, especially if we cultivate this passion of the explorer, are going to be driven to be constantly asking. And AI can be very helpful in terms of helping us come up with answers, but it's the questions that really matter. And I think that's what we as humans are uniquely capable of doing.
You started off outside of technology, got into computer technology, now you're talking about biosynthesis. Or where did you feel the most challenge, which area, and where did you get the most satisfaction?
My life has been a journey, and over the years, I was focused again on anticipating and helping people to see new opportunities emerging. But my particular passion and interest was in motivating people to address the opportunities, not just to see them and say, oh, wow, that's really an interesting opportunity, but no, how do I address it? How do I get impact from it? How do I learn from it? And what I was encountering was increasing resistance to addressing the opportunities. It was kind of, that's a distraction. I just need to focus on the next quarter and getting my numbers right for the next quarter, or else I'm going to be out of a job. And it was fear that was increasingly the barrier or resistance point. And that's what led me to write this new book. My 8th book was a recognition that unless we address the psychology, the emotions that are shaping our choices and actions, the best opportunities are just going to be unaddressed. To me, the most inspiring people and it's something now I increasingly look for when I'm working as a consultant, is I look at the psychology of the leaders and try to find a leader who has the real passion, who has real excitement about venturing into new areas and achieving more impact. And that's unfortunately pretty rare at this point. Everybody's just got their expertise. They know all the answers. They just need to do the numbers and get the results.
There's been a strong belief when people go for career counseling that we have to find our strengths, that we have to focus on the areas where we are strong. But from what you're saying, we have to keep learning, and that's the only way to go ahead. Would knowing our so-called strengths limit us, or would they help us to grow?
Unfortunately, the way it plays out today, it's a limiting factor because people just focus on those strengths and say, I can make it through this, just keep doing what I'm doing. I'll just mention one interesting pattern that I observe as a consultant. I've participated in many risk management meetings of large organizations. And in the risk management meetings, the focus is on, okay, if we do initiative A, what's the risk of that? If we do initiative B, what's the risk in that? Initiative C, et cetera. I have never been in a risk management meeting where they ask about what's the risk of not doing anything or just continuing to do what we've always done. There's no discussion of that, even though, in my view, in a rapidly changing world, that's the highest risk option of all. If you just continue doing what you've been doing in a world that's rapidly changing, good luck. But again, it's this mindset that our strength is what helped us get to where we are today, our success. That will continue to be our strength and success in the future. Again, it's recognizing that we're in a rapidly changing world, and what led to success in the past is not going to lead to success in the future.
That's true. The risk of not doing anything, or the risk of just repeating things and assuming that the future is a linear extension of the past. Given that so many things are changing right in front of us, in the computer industry, of course, it's the advent of artificial intelligence. You also pointed out in the healthcare industry, biosynthesis, and finding ways to have healthier, happier lives. What's the right attitude to cultivate so that a good leader can embrace what is relevant and not get swayed by short-term fads, if you will?
And it's complicated. I wouldn't say it's easy. I think the key elements, and I talk about this in much more detail in my book on the journey beyond fear, I've become a strong proponent of what I call opportunity-based narratives. And when I say narratives, most people think, oh, you're talking about stories. No, I make a distinction between stories and narratives. Stories for me are self-contained. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The end, the story is over. And the story is about me, the storyteller, or it's about some other people, real or imagined. It's not about you. And in contrast, for me, a narrative is open-ended. There is no end yet. There is some big threat or opportunity in the future, not clear whether it's going to be achieved or not. And the resolution of the narrative hinges on you. It's a call to action to the people in the audience. Your choices, your actions are going to help determine how this plays out. What's it going to be? And to your question about leadership, I think one of the key elements for strong leaders in the future are going to be those who can articulate a really inspiring opportunity-based narrative. What's the big opportunity if we all came together, learned together? What could we accomplish? What big opportunity has not yet been addressed? And then it's a notion of asking really powerful and inspiring questions and acknowledging that as a leader, I don't have all the answers on how to get to this opportunity. I need help. So it validates the importance of asking powerful questions and asking for help. It creates a culture. Again, in large organizations today, if you're asking for help, it's a sign of weakness. Don't ask for help, just do the job as assigned. And I think leaders have to make it clear that in a rapidly changing world, to address the big opportunities that are out there, we have to learn together, and we don't have all the answers yet. We need to keep working on it.
We are living in a very topsy-turvy world. Asking questions is considered sometimes intrusive or being nosy, and showing vulnerability is considered weakness.
Yes.
What are the big questions you're asking yourself in your personal or in your professional life? And what are the things you're most curious about?
And it's been a journey. Over the years, I've become more and more focused on psychology and emotions. And the question to me is, how do we make more effectively and broadly make the shift from fear to passion that will motivate us to address new opportunities? I'm actually in the process now of creating a new center that will offer programs to help people on that journey. It's also a journey that has yet to be fully defined and pursued. And so I'm an optimist, and I believe I can be a catalyst to help people on that journey and continue to do research into what is it that will help people to overcome the fear. Again, I think I get all kinds of objections, but many people say, as humans, we're biologically driven by fear. We have the amygdala that responds to threats, and that's all we can respond to. While I certainly recognize there, as part of our history and evolution, we were very focused on threats. I think as humans, we also have a hunger for hope and excitement. And I ask people, who do you know who has an aspiration to live in fear, who wants to live in fear? There's nobody who wants to live in fear. We all want hope and excitement, something that will really excite us and move us. And unfortunately, I don't think there are people out there today articulating what I call opportunity-based narratives that will help draw out that hope and excitement and bring people together to accomplish amazing things.
As I listen to you, John, I feel like I'm talking to a kid in a candy store, all excited, and it's amazing to see that. And that's the reason I wanted to talk to you. And I was patient to find the time when you're available. And to everybody out there, I cannot help but be curious. I want to know what's going on. I don't have all the answers. In fact, the answers are very nuanced and complex. What's going to happen beyond the clouds? What's going to happen beyond the existing healthcare system or the education system? So please come forward, talk to us. And John, please continue this amazingly curious journey of yours. And may you always find things to be curious about and people to be curious about.
No, well, I appreciate your interest and certainly encourage those to read this book, The Journey Beyond Fear. And I'm very active on social media. So if you're interested in staying in touch in terms of new questions and new developments, join me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I have a website. So I'm around.